Hi guys, my name is Shayda Campbell and this is an 11th apartment video. In this week's tutorial, we're going to be illustrating fruits and vegetables. So this week's video is inspired by viewer requests, by your requests, but it's also inspired by the time of year. If you're in a farming community, you'll know that anytime from August to October is when all these wonderful fruits and vegetables are in season and the harvest is happening. Chris and I actually go to our local farmers market almost every Saturday without fail, and we're so excited and inspired by all of the wonderful seasonal fruits and vegetables that we find there. And I don't know if I have ever mentioned this on camera, but I myself am really into canning. You'll know that if you were over at my blog, The 11th Apartment. I post some canning how-tos and recipes on there. And I actually find that canning is a really creative process. I'm not really into it in a survivalist way, more like in a testing out recipes and labeling jars kind of way. I have a lot of fun doing that. So for me, this is a really exciting topic because I love drawing sort of the foods and fruits that are around us right now, and I love doing some little canned foods and mason jar inspired illustrations. If you would like more info on drawing glass and jars, you can also watch my video on shading with markers, and I go into that subject a little more in depth in that video than I'm going to do today, so just so you know. And then little spoiler, today's video where we're going to draw a lot of these fruits and veggies will sort of be a lead up to next week's video where we're going to cover recipe illustration. That's another viewer request and I'm really excited about that one. I love illustrating recipes. They're a lot of fun to work on and they make great kitchen art. So that'll be next week, and this week we'll focus on fruit and vegetable illustration. So these are a few pieces that I've made. Of course, this one will be sort of the main one that we'll be working from, and I'm going to show you how to illustrate some of these items here, some of the fruits and berries and vegetables. But what I'm also going to recommend is that you go into your fridge and grab some of these items out of the fridge, or even go on Google Images and just draw what you see. Something like a pear or a strawberry or really any of this stuff is so iconic that you can really play around with your illustrative style and people are still going to know, okay, that's a strawberry. So you can do it round or heart-shaped with seeds or without, whatever you want. Have fun and work on your own style. Something that we're not going to do today, but that I think is a great practice and that I've mentioned in other videos, are these object groupings. And I have a whole video on these. And fruits and vegetables are a great subject for object groupings because they are so simple and iconic. So you can take something like oranges or strawberries or whatever and work out a design. So how do you take something like a strawberry and turn it into a piece of artwork? And what I've done here is I've grouped a couple of different sizes. I've added some leaves. I've added some of the strawberry blossoms, a simple border, and suddenly it's not just a strawberry, it's a little piece of artwork on the theme of strawberries. And that, if it was maybe a little bigger, would be, again, a little piece of art for your kitchen. And even if you're going to work through this to the point where you're really getting good at your illustrative style, these are the kinds of things you could be selling on Etsy, and you could have a whole shop of food-based or kitchen illustrations, which are really trendy and really in right now. So let's move some of this stuff out of the way and get started on today's illustration tutorial. All right, I'm going to start by illustrating some of the berries that you see here. Now, I'm going to start with these little guys, the raspberries. And what I do for them is I just make a sort of lumpy circle like that. And then I go pretty straight across the back and then do a little circle at the top. And then you can always add a few lines there for detail. If you want to draw a circular form first, that's not a bad idea. And then you'd add your little lumps around the edge. So those are pretty cute and fun. Something like a strawberry. As I said, it's all about your own style, but I'll start with a little floret of leaves at the top there. And then you can add really any shape. There's one. and a few seeds. I don't like to get too crazy on the seeds. Let's try that again. We'll do a floret of leaves, little stem, and there we go. So those are some cute little berries. Anything like small, like blueberries, are very simple. They're just plain circles, and then they have the little sort of crown of leaves on top. That would be a side view, and then if you're looking at the blueberry from the top down, you would see the little leaves on top, just like that. So simple, straightforward. Berries always look good with little blossoms and little leaves. So working with those little elements, you can come up with some pretty cute, fun little designs. And let's move this over a little. Anything like a pear or an apple, I really do recommend that you look at a pear in life, because you'll see the shape and you can just sort of draw from what's in front of you, but you can also draw from what you know. And what I know about pear is sort of that oblong shape, and that they often have a few little spots. I don't like to put spots all over. You'll notice I sort of like to group them in one area. I did that with the potato as well. But really, you can do any kind of shape when you're doing this stuff. So that could be a pear. It's all about how you want to present the item to your viewer, and how you want to, do your own style and what your style is like. Okay. And then something like the peaches and the plums and apples, I'm hardly even going to go into that, because these are really based on the way I've painted them. The fact that that's a plum, it's just a circle that I've done purple. And the peach, I did sort of a heart shape, a very cutesy type of peach, so we won't even go there. What I love to draw are these, like the radishes and carrots are a lot of fun to illustrate, because, because they have these great leafy tops. So let's do our little radish. I'm going to just do, and I kind of like doing the radish a little bit square almost, or almost like diamond, like that. Little shading. And then we've got a little root structure off the bottom there. And then the stems always sort of shoot straight up, and then we've got this great leafy top. And if you're doing watercolor, it's really fun, because you can just splash down some color, some water, leave a nice highlight wherever you need one, and then add in your details afterwards with your artist pen. And these are so fun to illustrate. And there's something about vegetables. Let's do the carrot, where they kind of are gnarly, so you get to sort of have that shake of the pen. And we'll just do this carrot kind of like that. And then he has the same thing, a few roots. And then we'll give him some ridges there. But a carrot, again, it can really be any shape. And then he has carrots have that sort of very sprayed out, almost herb looking top. And you can do that. You can represent that through lines and scribbles, splashes of color on the page, whatever you want to do. So I really love illustrating those, and some of these illustrated and then filled in with watercolor on a nice watercolor paper. Again, it would make a really great illustration for your kitchen. So I think those are a lot of fun to do, and you can sort of get a lot out of those illustrations. Let's do our little pea pod. So this one is one that I might do in pencil first, but you're going to do that sort of, you'll do the pod first, kind of like that. And then I just draw in these sort of squarish peas. Maybe you can see them, maybe you can't. It has a little curly Q off the top, those vines. And you could always draw it, any which way you want. You've got that nice shape there. Do a bit of the pod. And then you could always do them dangling in there. It's funny how they sort of hang. And you can sort of play around with how you want to illustrate each vegetable. The way you illustrate it, which way you draw it, is all something you're going to want to consider if you're doing a piece like this where they all need to fit together. And if you are doing a piece like this, for me, I don't just sit down and write harvest and then draw all this stuff around it. This probably took 2 or 3 or 4 attempts. And what I'll do is I'll draw the items out on just scrap paper or graph paper. Then I'll trace each of them, and then I'll eventually start to place them where I want them, and I'll just continue to trace and trace, keep doing traces of the design until I've placed everything in the sort of exact right spot. And so I play around with it a lot. Tracing paper is your best friend when you're trying to do these kind of designs. So that's how I sort of get that to come together. So what have we done? We've done peas. Again, something like tomatoes, it's so simple. It's all about how you want to represent it because it's just a circle and a few leaves on top. And, actually, but there is a point I wanted to make about these tomatoes, and that's that, again, if you're doing a design piece like this, you want to make sure that things are sort of at least somewhat in the right scale from one item to the next. So, the blueberries are the smallest, followed by the blackberries, then you've got your strawberries. Something like the blueberries might be the size that they are in life. Something like the carrot is not, of course, but we at least see that it's a little bigger and it's about the same size, as the pear and the peach are around the same size. These tomatoes, of course, are not the right size. If I were to tell you that they're a full-size tomato, if they're a full-size tomato, they should be around the same size as the peach or the potato, but I sort of got away with that one because I think I'm going to say they're cherry tomatoes. So that's how I sort of worked that in, and then I think most things are sort of within the right scale from one thing to the next. So that's another thing you'll just want to consider when you're drawing these. The little cucumber pickles are a lot of fun to draw. You can sort of figure out your shape however you want and then give it a stem. Of course, you can do that in pencil, and then you just sort of give it a nice lumpy, bumpy surface there and a few lines and warts. And then you've got some fun little pickles, so those are really easy to do. And I think the last thing that I'll show you here is just my bunch of grapes. And this one I've done, again, it's just about not taking it too seriously, and I just sort of start drawing these circles. Some are just half circles, and you sort of come forward as if the grapes are coming off the page, have more at the top, and then they sort of taper off to 1 or 2 grapes at the bottom here. So it's just about creating that formation that kind of flows forward as if to flow off the page, and you give it a little stem. All my stems and leaves are pretty similar, right? But, it's just my own little style, and they've got their little curly cute leaves as if they've just been plucked off the vine, and that's that. Okay, thank you so much for watching today, guys. If you are a regular viewer and you're planning to tune in next week for recipe illustration, start thinking this week about what recipe you might want to illustrate and what foods it includes. So if you've got a great family recipe for blueberry pie, you might want to practice your blueberries, practice drawing pies. There's a pie illustration in my autumn tutorial from last week. And think about all elements of the recipe. So a few winters ago, I did a recipe for, I think it was some sort of chicken dish, but I of course illustrated, it was one of Chris's favorite recipes. Of course I illustrated the chicken, and then I did a salt and pepper shaker, and I illustrated a little bit of thyme. Actually, I've got a drawing here of some herbs, so you think about herbs that might be used in the recipe and how you can illustrate them, and sort of work on that. So that next week when we do recipe illustration, you've got your vegetables and herbs or whatever it is down, and you're ready to work them into an illustrative design that includes the entire recipe so that the recipe would actually be usable if read from the wall. And we'll talk about how to work all the text together in with the illustrations and how it can all come together to create a cohesive, beautiful, and also functional design. I will see you next week. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, as usual, please don't hesitate to hit like and subscribe, and I will see you next week. So get those illustrations all ready, choose your recipe, practice your herb and veggie and fruit illustrations, and next week we'll dive right into recipe illustration. See you then!